Hey everyone, my name is Mikkel. I'm a partner here at Gordijn Consulting. Welcome to the first installment in a new batch of webinars that we're running this late winter. The first topic we're going to cover is called winning new logos. And why are we picking up this topic, right? A few things. First and foremost, what we can see in a lot of the sort of commercial plans and a lot of the commercial planning we do together with companies, it's very evident that in order for these companies to reach their goals, they are more or less all calling out the need to win new logos. So there's clearly a need and a driver anchored to the commercial plan and the targets that a lot of companies are bringing to the table. And then thirdly, we also want to put the highlight on the fact that this is almost an entirely different capability from developing existing customers. And too often these two sort of worlds are converging and blended together and talked about in the same way. But in our experience, it's a totally different game to hunt than it is to farm. That's why we want to put the spotlight on this topic specifically. So let's get going. We have a bit around 40 minutes ahead of us. I'm going to put the spotlight on four things relevant to winning new logos, right? Why is this so critical for companies in order for them to grow? Then we're going to talk a little bit about where should growth actually come from when it comes to winning new logo. Who plays a role in winning new logo? And then a lot of the meat today is going to be on the how. So how do you actually set up the organization in the right way to enable the organization to actually go find and close these new logos. So pretty practical and pretty much straight to point. 2 minutes on Gordijn Consulting. We're a consulting company focused on commercial topics, top line growth, right? We do loads of different things from supporting private equity players on running a commercial due diligence, commercial strategy, even corporate strategy, segmentation, targeting, resource planning, organizational design. But we also spend a lot of time working with organizations and setting them up to succeed in this new buying reality. And that entails developing the right tools, the right processes, the right capabilities and competences needed to succeed. So yeah, growth consultancy, both working on the more strategic piece, but also definitely also supporting on change and development. So what are we here for? Again, we're talking about the high level topic of how do we get more new logos into our business. We're going to talk about and frame it around this key question, but in the context of companies that typically have sort of a generalist sales force, where the sales force are not sort of broken up into different pieces, where you have SDRs and account executives and the likes. This is for companies that have sort of a generalist sales force, or are setting up a dedicated sort of BDR team or account executive team that needs to go hunting for new logos. This is not designed for those companies that are aiming to set up sort of a separate SDR function focused on lead generation and outbound. This is more for the generalist salespeople working across the full sales process. So that's just an important caveat. Again, new customer acquisition is the lifeblood of growth. And even though there's a lot of talk about, hey, keeping a customer is a lot more less expensive than getting a new one and whatnot, it's again seen again and again and again that real growth comes from winning new customers. Yes, you can expand customers. Yes, you can raise prices. But again, customers churn, customers downsell. And again, if you want to grow, you need to bring new blood to the table, new logos. And this is a premise for everything we talk about today. Again, new logo acquisition is a core driver of growth. So if you want to grow, you need this capability. But again, in a lot of organizations, especially this generalist sales organization, new logo sort of hunting is often seen as a little bit of a mysterious and very tough ball game, right? In many ways, right? And one of the things we see is, and a lot of the sort of sometimes objections we get from chief revenue officers and even CEOs is that they come with this perspective that the sales reps, they are mostly farmers. They are not hunters, right? They wait by the phone, they handle orders, but they don't create orders. And that's a half truth, I would say, because of course it depends on whether these teams are set up to succeed and incentivized in a proper way. But that's sometimes at least the overall perception at the leadership level. Looking a little bit at that statement, we also need to reconcile two things that can both be true. Yes, some people are natural rainmakers. So this thing about saying this is purely about training and whatnot, it's not entirely true. Some people are naturally gifted, charismatic, whatnot, good at landing new clients. But I think more importantly, it's also, why are people ending up, quote unquote, acting mostly as farmers, not hunters, is because they don't get the support, the enablement, the structure, and the incentives that should support this transformation. So yes, we have some people that are more inclined to do this, and it's more difficult for other more introverted people, yes. But the biggest challenge for me is by far the support to the reps to make sure that they're set up to hunt, so to say. And why do, generally speaking, generally sales forces struggle with new logo hunting? Well, often, at least, comp models and incentives are not necessarily helping things, right? You have these sort of super short-term quarterly incentive model that don't necessarily motivate you to invest in new logo hunting, which is much more sort of a game of delayed gratification, takes much longer time. You don't see necessarily sort of the dollar in the bank in the same month that you invest in building a new relationship and turning it into opportunities and all the things that goes into new logo hunting. So comp models do not always align with the need, with the aspiration of winning new logos. And again, if you also, as a salesperson, have some sort of account management responsibilities with existing customers, what we at least typically see is there is a bit of a gravitational pull from these customers, right? They keep having requests and small orders and whatnot, and that pull will often supersede the work sort of and the delayed gratification that comes with creating new customers. So if you also have existing customer focus, that's usually where the energy goes for good and natural reasons, but it is a barrier. And then the third pillar is this the notion of skills and capabilities, because in our perspective, winning new logos is and prospecting and all the activities that goes with winning new logos, it's a different skill set compared to those that goes into managing existing account, taking orders on those accounts, developing those accounts. And this distinction is often also underestimated at a leadership level. And then a lot of the sort of new logo programs are sort of mostly framed as a 2-month or 1-month sales blitz, right? But it's actually a long game that you need to play, and these 1-month sales blitzes rarely cut it, because it's much more of a bigger lift that requires almost a organizational transformation, and we need a little bit of we need to realize the fact that it takes a bit of time. So often these efforts are killed prematurely. So that's new logo hunting. Yes, we want to do it, but there's also a lot of things holding us back. So where do we go from here? It's important to understand what is it actually that allows us to land new logos in a systematic and predictable manner, because this is not about a Hail Mary or winning one deal or being lucky or I know someone from school. This is about being systematic and predictable. And what drives this predictable outcomes is sort of 3 components. The systematic piece. We need to be super deliberate in our actions and aim to develop repeatable, scalable practices. Again, have we totally formalized what prospecting and new logo hunting looks like, or are we just telling people to go find some customers? So how systematic and prescriptive are we on that piece? Then we need to be consistent. That's another thing, and we'll get back to that when we talk about how to run this engine. We need to execute this with high reliability and predictability and consistency, right? So we need to run this engine. This is not just about defining the aspiration, providing some material to the sales rep. We need consistency in execution. And then we need to be capable, and that's the third piece where this is a bit of a hobby horse. We need to make sure that we have equipped our sales force with the right skills, materials, tool support, whatnot, to be able to hunt new logos in a proper way. This is a different game than developing existing accounts where you've had years and years of strong relationships with the client. So those are the 3 building blocks, and we're going to bake those into the framework we'll show in a few minutes. Building a new logo, what are the 3 sort of major ingredients you need in place as an organization in order to achieve this? This is not about the individual sales rep. This is about, as an organization, to build this capability to go from farming to hunting. 3 sort of major buckets. The where piece, we need a clear idea about where will growth come from. So have we identified ideal customer profiles, key growth segments? Have we called and defined our positioning value prop and the messaging for new customers? Do we have a great product and offer in place? And have we sort of defined and sized the market all the way down to the target account list, right? So that foundation, is that in place? Again, it's not enough to say we need to just ask sales reps and come with the request to find new logos. We need to help them. And that requires that growth map is in place. The who piece, have we totally articulated who within the company needs to play a role in this agenda? I'll get back to that. It's quote unquote not just about the sales rep, but a lot of people inside the company can actually do something about it. And then we need the leadership support, of course. And then finally, the how, where the bulk of this presentation is going to dwell. What are the things that needs to be in place in the operational engine that allows us to execute this agenda? Let's go through each of these topics. The first piece is, again, why is new logo hunting so hard? Well, it's really a game of patience. What we can see from a lot of research done in B2B buying is that sales cycles are super long. It takes a lot of time to complete a sales a potential deal. That's one thing. Another thing is it's not the whole market that is actually in market. So it's only 5 to 10% of your potential prospects that are actually in market looking for a solution, right? A lot of different touch points, channels are of course part of buying, right? So buying is getting more tough and long sales cycles, and not everyone are actively looking for solution. So that's a different context compared to existing customers where they come to you and say, we have this need, we would like to make an additional order, or we would like to repurchase, or we would like to expand with more seats to our software, whatever it is. Totally different dynamic. And it's hard, and we need patience, very important. Another thing is to understand, again, with this growth map idea, where will growth actually come from, right? Have we outlined the key segments where belief will bring home the bacon for our company in years to come? And it might be markets or segment or whatever variable we use to describe them. But is that map totally clear? Because that will provide a lot of the guidance for the sales rep. And that map will also allow us to create like target account list and all these operational things we need in place. It's not enough to say, please go find some customers. So we need some sort of clarity around this in order for the sales organization to succeed. So that's very basic, just making sure that we understand where growth will come from. We have clarified the target customers we want to go after and all these things, right? Then how do we do it and who should be involved are some of the key questions we'll address now. I'll start with the who piece. Why is this important? I think it's super important because especially the connection between, let's say, leadership and the sales team. Leadership really need to support this agenda. And support is not just saying, again, we need more logos, but really lean into it. It has different pieces to it. It entails understanding trade-offs. This is a separate set of activities that needs to be in place where the investment horizon is a bit longer, right? We're not going to see immediate return. So we need to understand what does that mean in terms of how we allocate capital, how we run as a company, how we maybe trade off sort of current short-term revenue with long-term revenue coming from new logos. And the most important thing is also having the patience and providing the support, the investments, the resources, all those things that the sales team need in order to pursue this agenda, right? So leadership, extremely important. Another thing is on the sales team, right? So we're talking about sales. So of course, sales has a big role to play here. One of the key questions I would ask myself is, how do we actually set up this sales team to succeed in the best possible way? And what we're seeing in a lot of generalist sales organization, where again, sales rep handle the full funnel, but actually also handle existing accounts, is that again, the pool of existing accounts is going to take up a lot of the energy. So this new logo, quote unquote, hunting will be a little bit of a side hustle. And that can be detrimental. And it's going to be nothing more than a side hustle. Again, if we say this is extremely important for the future growth prospects of our company, we also need to make sure that we set aside the time, the money, and the resources to deliver on this agenda. So one thing that you could do is to build up a separated, let's call it a hunter team, that's dedicated solely to winning new logos. So they are not incentivized, quote unquote, to develop any existing accounts. They don't have assigned responsibility for any existing account. They are purely measured on their ability to find and land new logos. And of course, that's the ideal model. It's not always feasible, because for different reasons, you need to make sure that utilization across your sales force is correct. And, you know, there's a lot of factors to factor in, I know. But if possible, I think it's a strong sort of lever to pull here, to set aside a team that's dedicated to this agenda. And then in time, you can take this agenda and put it on the wider organization. But we need to make sure someone actually spends time on this. Very basic thing. On the support field, on the support side, is I think the key question here is, who outside sales and leadership team can support on this agenda? And one thing that we have sort of a firm believer in, that's that marketing and field marketing can definitely do a lot of stuff in terms of generating leads or providing air cover for the sales reps. So have we set up our lead engine in the proper way, right? We've defined our customer universe. Okay, are we running campaigns towards this target audience? Do we run lead engine, lead campaigns, so we can pass on leads to the sales force? Do we set up an SDR team that can also cold call some of these different clients and passing on those leads and so on, right? So a lot of stuff can be done also for marketing to support this agenda. We also need the sales ops or the rev ops to make sure that they also commit to this, because why do we need that? We need a sort of total oversight and stringent metrics and tracking in place across the full funnel, right? So how's our opportunity progressing through the funnel? Where's the drop-offs? What's going on, right? So we need the data and the system and the tracking support to be in place. And again, in a lot of companies, it's there. In a lot of companies, it's not there. But we need that visibility also in order for us to understand what's working, what's not really working. And then I think I want to, again, back to the leadership point. This is important for the future of our company. We need to make sure that the rest of the organization actually also understand it, because in a lot of sort of technically advanced companies, there's a lot of things that the rest of the organization can support on, right? All the way from, you know, product, customer success, operations, whatnot, these quality and so on in industrial companies. These different stakeholders can definitely also pick up new opportunities and make sure that your company is positioned in the right way, right? So this is not, quote unquote, just a sales task. This is a company-wide agenda, and people need to make sure that if they sort of work in this organization, please say we are all somewhat in the game of selling. So that was a bit of on the where to grow, how to who to involve. I think it's the most important ingredients of this whole agenda is the how piece. So how do we set up our engine, new customer acquisition engine in a proper way? So I'm going to dwell a little bit on that in a few seconds. One thing that is extremely basic, but something we're again seeing again and again and again that our companies have not implemented in a proper way, is to set up a sort of a robust sales process, right? All the way from lead management to qualify, propose, negotiate, quote, however you set it up. There's 5 or 6 stages, doesn't matter. The thing is, we need a firm sales process that's baked into the CRM that everyone works from. We need to assign weights to each of these stages, and we need to understand how our potential sort of prospects flow through that funnel, because a lot of our tracking and sort of assessments on how things are going is based on this. we're going to do a lot of sales management coaching on top of this funnel to make sure that we have the right distribution of deals across the funnel. We need to make sure we have the right pipeline coverage, and we also, of course, use it to forecast potential revenue. So a robust sales process with objective, verifiable outcomes, and all these best practices need to be in place. That's key. And then to the extent possible, also set realistic targets, right? Drill down targets from all the way from the chief revenue officer down to sales managers, all the way down to individual reps, to make sure that we have clear targets for each individual, teams, all the way to the company level, and people understand what to do and what we expect from them. And to what extent, at an ongoing basis, we can sort of track whether we are progressing against those targets or not, is also super key. So set targets and drill it down all the way to individual reps in order for us to measure progress and understand whether we are progressing. One of the very most important things is, of course, tracking, very important, but I think on top of that is to set the right cadence in the teams, okay? And between the teams to leadership, okay? What does that entail? The first thing, for example, is to understand now you're looking like at a pod or a territory where we're running this agenda and we make sure that we are creating pipeline and winning new customers. How can you set up a weekly or bi-weekly cadence that allow you to run this engine with the right sort of consistency, structure, but also force and pace, right? It could be something like this, where you break it up into 5 different sort of phases, where you have a planning phase that you run sort of end of a week, where you declare sort of and define your focus accounts. Then you have a bit of a research phase, and AI can support on that, but to make sure that around these key accounts that you want to chase, have you done the research? Do you understand what's going on? What are the key hypotheses? And how do we design a proper proposition against those accounts? Then you review that with your sales manager, you refine your strategies, you maybe role play some of the key skills that you need in order to open up these accounts and generate the pipeline. And then you go execute, right? You might execute for a few days, doing the cold calling, emailing, using all that research, the focus that comes with the account list, all these things. And then end of week, you reflect on successes, share stories in the team, and reinforce how this agenda is extremely important. Whether it looks exactly like this or not, but we need a structure like this in order to have focus, structure, and pace around this agenda. At the same time, we also need at the aggregate level, so between, let's quote unquote, the different territories, all the way rolled up to the big number that the revenue officer sits with, we need to make sure that we have a proper sort of monthly reporting and strategic review structure in place around this agenda. It could include something like, think of this like a sort of a monthly report type of thing, where we look at some key metrics, right? New logos, pipeline value, win rates, whatnot, broken down at different territories or segments, however we are organized. Highlights of sort of recent challenges or wins, sort of wins, but also challenges we're seeing sort of a more qualitative level. Pipeline overview, stage analysis. So again, coming back to our sales process, how is our pipeline distributed across that stage? Is it front-loaded? Is it in the sense that there's a lot of stuff stuck in the very initial? Is it backloaded, or there's a lot of things very close to ending? A lot of insights can sort of emerge from understanding how our pipeline looks and how healthy it is, to be frank. Deep dive on top 5 opportunities if we're in a big deal business, right? How do we land those? Any strategizing needed at leadership level? Activity metrics as well, looking at outreach activities, engagement activities, and so on. Are we keeping the pace in this engine that we believe is so important for the future of our company? And then, of course, performance KPIs. How are individuals, teams, and the whole company tracking against the goals and targets we've set, and all these things. So that's more of a monthly exercise, okay? It can look like this. It can also be a bi-weekly or whatnot, or quarterly, depending on how you see the business. It can have different pieces to it. The important thing is to get in place a cadence within the teams. How do you run this and then a monthly sort of a strategic review type of cadence in place. These two things need to be in place. Another thing I just wanna highlight is prospecting. You know, going out to potential cold customers that maybe even don't know you, generating leads, turning those leads into a business opportunity, and whatnot, is a very sort of specific discipline that's very different from account development. So what I would suggest is to train this discipline, because if you have a pharma sales organization, this discipline is quite alien to a lot of people, just based on my sort of humble experience, right? So make sure that you train in this. Don't just sort of anticipate that everyone will be off the bat able to do this, because now we tell them it's important, we provide the right incentive structure. You need to make sure they have the skills in place to run this agenda. So there's a lot of stuff that can be done, but it's a separate agenda that requires separate training. On the incentive piece, it could also be that we, depending on how you're structured and whatnot, you know, if you have a separated hunter team, this is all they do. So of course they should have like new logo pipeline targets. But if you have a generalist sales organization, it could be that you want to create a pull towards new logo acquisition from quote unquote only serving existing clients. It could be introducing spiffs, right? A spiff is like an ad hoc, time-boxed sales incentive used to generate quick short-term results, right? If we're calling out a month where we really want to do a sprint or a blitz, you know, you can introduce some sort of spiff where they get additional sort of bonus for new logo acquisition. It could also be that we provide a premium to new logo, right? So when we talk about achieving your targets and achieving quota, it could be that we put in a mechanism that says revenue from totally new logos that were not a client in this year will bring 2x the revenue compared to quote unquote existing customers. So there's a lot of things to do here as well to set up the incentives in a proper way. And then also a little bit linked to the sales training piece, to make sure that we have the assets designed and the support and enablement designed for new logo acquisition. Again, it's a different journey. So you're going to engage prospects that don't know you. Maybe they have a vague need. Maybe you need to help them understand the impact of that need. You need to help shape a buying vision. You need to demonstrate that you're actually a credible and technically feasible vendor. And all these things, very different from an existing client where they know who you are, they know what you offer, you have total credibility, right? So make sure that you have some of the key tools and enablement assets in place. And there's a long list here. It can be many things from trend observations, reference stories, to battle cards, competitor analysis, ROI calculations, and all these things. Again, I don't want to get into the specific. The key is to understand what are the different stages, what are the different objections, what are the different themes we want to bring to the customer, and understand whether we can support the reps with some assets that make it easier for them to run this quote unquote acquisition process. Also a key thing to get in place. Another thing, and that's more like a gift to the customer, but also something that's important, is to set up some sort of, it could be a new logo implementation accelerator. So we actually, as part of our proposition, we set up a dedicated implementation team, depending on what you're offering, right? That is focused on bringing new clients on board and helping them get fast to value and see quick wins, right? This type of accelerator can be extremely powerful, both as an offer, but also bring them in as part of the sales process, and they can help break down the solution and create a clear vision for the client on how to get value and mitigate some of the risks that clients perceive when they are choosing quote unquote an unproven and new vendor. So small practical thing, but can be extremely powerful. And then again, on the enablement piece, make sure that you make it as easy for the reps to get going. So there's a lot of data providers, AI providers and whatnot that allow us to create fully verified and super enriched pursuit lists. So don't just go to your reps and say, hey, we need to land some hospitals. No, make it super tangible. These hospitals in your region these are the contact persons that you want to reach out to. This is some data on these accounts. This is how it's been qualified and enriched with the right type of information. Bake it into the CMS, the CRM, to make it easy for the reps to access and just go do. Again, we're taking away the pain and the barriers, right? So there's a lot of work that can be done up front. And again, there's a lot of data providers, and there's a lot of AI-driven solution that allows you to create super strong lists, building on all the information that's out there and taking that work away from the sales rep. So make it so easy and make it as easy as possible. Before we go to the Q&A, I have a couple of closing thoughts just to wrap things up. We talked a little bit about the where, the how, and the who today. I just also want to highlight that it's a big word, but it is almost a sort of a transformation for a sales force that's used to working with existing clients, right? So we need to make sure that everyone in the leadership supports this. We need to make sure that there is, at least in the commercial team for sure, also supports this agenda, provide the air cover, the resources, the morale and the support needed. So there's a leadership task here. Cultural adaptation, right? Again, it's a different game. It requires a completely different horizon. You're going to get a lot more rejections. You're going to do a lot of things. You're going to get ghosted, whatnot. It's a different game than quote unquote handling existing clients. So culturally speaking, there's also an adaptation needed. And then coming back to the how piece that we spend a lot of time on, the operational discipline to keep this fire burning and keep this engine humming, extremely important. It's not enough just to have intent and leadership, right? Get up on your beer crate and say, hey, we need to win new logos. We're fully behind you guys. Let's go. Not enough. We need to provide all those operational cogwheels needed for this engine to hum. That's, I would say, the most important part of succeeding with this agenda. All of them important, but focus on operational discipline, extremely important. Where do you go from now? Okay, you might hopefully sort of share this perspective that winning new logos is important for your business going forward. But maybe you're also a little bit unclear, how do I go from here, right? The steps I would take is size and define your hunting ground. Have you defined where you believe growth will come from? Ideal customer profiles, geographies, segments, whatnot. To what extent can you define that hunting ground? Reflect a little bit on which of these levers, because it doesn't mean that every company should do all of this, but have a clear idea about which levers do you believe would be the most impactful for the next 6 to 12 months to ensure that you can actually deliver on this agenda. And then make sure that all the sort of, you have your ducks in a row in terms of processes, system support, and resources. Create that map, make sure to make it explicit and transparent for your colleagues in the leadership team, what is actually needed to be in place. And then again, go creating and blueprinting this structure, whether it's the cadence, whether the tool support, whatever. Design this structure in a proper way. Don't sort of just hope it organically will take care of itself. And that's a leadership task, of course. And then, of course, make sure you have realistic targets, right? What are we expecting? When do we pull the plug, to be frank as well? Of course, if we're not delivering on this agenda, have pretty set expectations to this agenda in order for you to measure progress, understand where to set in if you need to do some sort of course correction, but also understand what does success look like. So that would be the 5 building blocks that I would go through in order to accelerate this agenda within a company. Situation, just wanna the sort of too long to read sum up of this webinar. A lot of sales organization wanna land new logos, but at the same time, a lot of them are actually not used to doing it, which sounds a little bit weird. But a lot of account manager type of people find prospecting extremely difficult. So yeah, it's a big lift. So what do you need? Yeah, well, you need structure, consistency, and capability. That's sort of the formula. We need all those things in place. Then we need to look at that sort of canvas, right? Getting the where, the who, and especially, I would say, the how in place, right? It's not just about assigning some accounts to the reps and hoping they'll take care of it. We need to support them in the best possible way by going through some of these topics covered in the canvas. And then finally, get the cultural sort of adaptation, the leadership support, and make sure that we follow through on and keep the operational discipline in order to keep this engine humming, so to say. So that would be the 3 key takeaways from this webinar. So we have about 7 minutes left. Any questions? Feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll just go through some of those in a second. I'm just gonna stop sharing my. There's a question around how do you build a truly hunting mentality for the sales force going from farming to hunting? And this is definitely one of the big things. There's a cultural mindset type of change needed, right? And that change is bigger than what you would probably expect, right? So first of all, I want to realize that it's an extremely big transformation for seasoned salespeople that are not used to hunting to start doing it. Then you know, before this question, so there's a question of whether you should set up a dedicated hunter team or not. I'll pass that on and just sort of talk into this topic when under the sort of the circumstances that you have a generally sales team that have existing and new customer targets, and now we need to accelerate this agenda. The mentality piece is really, I think, as sales management, extremely important to make sure that there's constant support, coaching available, right? Do not let it just sit with the sales reps on their own. Make sure the structure and the coaching from the sales management is in place. So I would say changing a mentality is always difficult, but sales management is I think a crucial part of it. And again, once you get sort of the structure in place, you hear the CEO talking about this agenda and so on. Hopefully, in turn, people will start to see how important it is, but also tap into the support they can get to make it a bit easy and accessible and demystify it a little bit. Because yes, it's different, but it's not that different. Any final questions? What role do you think AI will play in the early prospecting work when trying to win new logos? I think it has a lot of possibilities, especially when it comes to understanding what does an ideal customer look like. Can we create pursuit lists that are verified, right? So we have the right accounts, the right contact, the people to contact. We have contact information on those accounts, and we have automated the setup around account research. So we make sure that we know what's going on in these companies. We know how to address those topics and create tailored value propositions. So I'm very bullish on AI in terms of making sure that we have the information, the accounts, and all the information needed to do the actual outreach. I'm less bullish on automating emails and whatnot. I think we still need real people to do a lot of the engagement. But definitely in the prospecting piece, there's a lot of efficiencies that can be harvested through AI-based solution. Thank you for today. I think that was the last questions. Thank you for taking the time, and yeah, feel free to reach out if there is anything needed. Pure pleasure. We'll have 2 more webinars coming up a few weeks down the line, so make sure to tune in again a few weeks down the line, where Niels will share some findings about frontline branding, and my colleague Charlotte will talk about how to get product training right. Thank you. Have a great day.